Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the ROS Media channel. My name is Andy. I'm with my good friend Ian Clifford, who is the founder and the president of the Republic of Old Souls here. Grateful to have you with us. We are doing today our weekly webinar Q&A. As you know, we run a flagship webinar every Saturday morning. We're going to be doing one this Saturday as well at 10 a.m. UK time. And essentially what we do is when we get questions come through from you guys who have registered and you've posted your question at registration, we collate them all together and then we run a Q&A early part of the following week to make sure that you get your questions answered. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We've got all those questions together. I've organized them into 5 core sections to help you better understand how this works, and more importantly, how it can positively change your situation, by moving from that debtor to creditor status. So let's dig in, Ian. The first section that I want to cover today from the members and from people who were on the webinar on Saturday is global and regional applicability to this. I've actually got 4 questions here, but I can hone this down into 2 because 3 of the questions are just to do with different areas of the world. Same question, really. So I'm simply going to say this. As a UK resident or as an Australian or Irish or African resident, does this process apply to me? Will the Clifford Protocol work?
Well, of course, the living soul doesn't live in a country. So the actual originator of the energy, the signature creator, doesn't have a country. It's worldwide. It's international. There is no such thing as a natural living soul, as a citizen, because they're 2 very different things. Yeah. So we start with who really are you? And you are a living soul. You don't have a country. You're not a citizen of a country. You don't belong to a country. What you have is an agency relationship with the birth certificate construct, which is registered in a country. Well, what is a country? A country, the best way to think about a country is it's a corporate entity that is part of, in the same way as the artificial construct of the birth certificate, it's very similar to that. It's like a corporate entity that may or may not have an incorporation number. It doesn't really matter because it's operating on within a worldwide trust. So the whole world, this monopoly board that I talk about a lot, is a worldwide trust. Each of the countries are components, artificial components of that worldwide trust. The birth certificate construct, the citizen, the straw man, the ens legis, depending on what description you prefer, is registered to a country which is part of this world trust. So as long as the banking infrastructure in the country where the signatures are being transferred, remember those deposits I talk about, the signature creates a deposit of energy. As long as the banking infrastructure in the country is part of the world scene, and that is, if you can look at it in terms of the Bank for International Settlements at the very, very top of the pyramid, then the International Monetary Fund. If the bank that you're working with through bank payments, mortgages, loans, credit cards, or the banks in your country are part of the IMF system, if the bank that you're working with has an EIN number, which most do, then you can absolutely take part in the Clifford Protocol, signature credit, tax redirection. And if you're not working with a bank that's within the IMF system, I'd be very, very surprised, because the Federal Reserve is able to bail out banks anywhere in the world if they're part of the IMF system. So it's quite common for banks all over the world to be part of the IMF, part of the world banking scene. It's unusual for banks not to be part of it. There are a couple of exceptions. I'm in North Cyprus. The banks here aren't part of the IMF system, but they have a correspondent bank in Turkey that is. North Cyprus is not part of the world banking model, but the Turkish banks are, and they have correspondent banks. So that's typically what happens is you may be in a country that may not appear to have a banking network that's part of the IMF, but they probably have a correspondent bank that is, because they want access to the Federal Reserve, because that's really where they get their ultimate liquidity from. The central banks and ultimately the Federal Reserve, and possibly the Bank for International Settlements, which is where they can issue what's called SDR, special drawing rights. But we won't go down that pathway because that's too institutional. But basically, it doesn't matter which country you're in, you'll probably find that the bank that you're depositing your energy with, whether it's bank payments, whether it's mortgages, loans, or credit cards, somewhere is part of the IMF system, part of the Federal Reserve system, involved with an investment bank in New York that is purchasing the securities. I published a paper on our Telegram channel this morning, the Playing Monopoly to Win channel, which is all about hypothecation. So banks want to hypothecate the signature credit energy. And if they're not part of the IMF, not part of the dollar-based system, they can't do that. And, if I was running a bank, and heaven forbid, I would absolutely want to be part of that system. So the chances are that you will be able to do this.
Perfect. Okay. Next question, slightly different. How does the corporate debtor construct occur when someone is a landed immigrant from another country who arrives at a country that registers them as a citizen?
Well, it comes down to the social insurance system. It's a world system again. I did a webinar on this a few years ago. There is a central social security database for all countries. They're all of the registrations in the local country are part of a worldwide social insurance system. So when the citizen is relocating from one country to another, it doesn't really, it's like a sub account of a master account. The master account's worldwide. The sub account is in the country. They just move that sub account to another country, but it's all still part of a one world social insurance system. So it doesn't really matter. The citizen is this artificial construct, which is just really where it's registered. So they're going to register it in a new country, but it's still part of the same worldwide social insurance system.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ian. So moving on to the next section. Section number 2 is to do with the 98 series trust and protecting assets as well. And the first question here is, can I protect my stock portfolio inside my 98 series international grantor trust?
I think we're talking about the Asset Fortress protocol, and if that, I guess that's the case, not the trust that's filing the 1099 OID to become the holder in due course. But if we're talking about the Asset Fortress protocol, then the stock portfolios have title. So you have there'll be a certificate that says this portfolio of stocks, or it could be cryptocurrencies, could be stocks, could be bonds. There will be a certificate of title, and you just simply move that under the Asset Fortress Trust. So yes, the answer is absolutely. In fact, it's the most sensible thing to do. You don't want it registered underneath the birth certificate construct, because that ultimately is registered to the state. You want the title to the stocks and shares in the Asset Fortress. If it were me, I would get out of stocks and shares and get myself into physical assets.
Yeah, gold, silver, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Next question then. If a person wishes to pay off debt, such as a standard loan, directly from their 98 series trust, will that raise red flags with the retail bank? I'm assuming they mean the retail bank where the loan has been taken from, or are these transactions pre-approved on the back-end systems of the US Treasury stroke IRS?
Well, in most cases, loans, even mortgages, in the contractual terms, enable the holder of the mortgage, that's the alleged debtor, to be able to use other sources of capital, as long as you can demonstrate, which you can here, the grantor of the Asset Fortress Protocol is the birth certificate construct. So the bank's going to say, where are these funds coming from? And you say, they're coming from my international trust. And the bank's going to say, how do we know that these funds are connected to you? You meaning the asset, the birth certificate construct. Well, you show them the trust indenture front page, which has got the grantor's name on it, the same as the birth certificate construct. And if they want to know, the source of funds, well, a declaration from MLITR Research, who can say the funds were ultimately from tax redirection, should be sufficient. Shouldn't have any problem with it. And of course, the bank account that is operating the Asset Fortress Protocol, or the Asset Fortress Protocol operating the bank account, it's an international bank, so they can give clean title certificate as well on the actual funds. It's nothing to do with the Treasury at that point. It's all to do with the banks doing due diligence. Is this entity a lawful entity? Yes. Are the source of funds lawful? Yes. What's the origin of the funds? Well, it's tax redirection. Okay, fine. Shouldn't be a problem. I can't envisage a problem with it at all.
Okay, great. So next question is, do the funds inside the trust account need to be transferred to an alternate retail account before being spent, or can they be deployed directly? Oh, you're muted, Ian. You're muted, Ian. Let me just unmute you a second. Hang on. Right, now I can't unmute you, unfortunately. So something's happened on your end. I'm not sure. Can you unmute your microphone, or is it stuck? Is it misbehaving again, I think? Let's just wait for Ian to come back, and then we'll continue. That is the only difficulty, guys, that we have when we go live. If something goes wrong, we can't press pause and stop that. So just bear with us, and we'll come back to you as soon as we can. I know Ian's had a few issues with his microphone, and it seems to have struck again today. I mean, to be fair, I can kind of answer this one for you anyway. I'll let Ian answer it, and I'm sure he'll answer it in the same way. But in terms of funds inside a trust account, do they need to be transferred to an alternate retail account before being spent, or can they be deployed directly? They can be deployed directly. The whole purpose of having the Asset Fortress with its own private bank account is that bank account is, number one, it's an international bank account. Number two, it will come with a bank card. And it sits on the Monopoly board. The 98 series grantor trust, that's the beauty of what we've got here. It has its own jurisdiction, but when it comes to money out from that bank account, you can spend from that bank account. It's private, but because you can spend, you can recoup as well. So you don't need to move it from your Asset Fortress bank account to your normal high street bank account to then spend and recoup. Your Asset Fortress bank account itself will have its own banking card. Can be used internationally, and you'll be able to use that just for sort of day-to-day expenditure, normal payment of bills, purchases, whatever you want to do. And then all of those new securities that you've then pushed out for that year, you can then recoup those back as well. So there's no need to complicate this whatsoever. You can keep it nice and simple and just have the money come back in, have the tax redirection come back into the main account, and then that will be transferred to your Asset Fortress private bank account, and you can spend from there. Very, very simple. I'm Just looking to see if there's any of these questions that I can answer as well while we're waiting for Ian. One of the questions we've had here is, can I use my infinite money recoupments to set up or facilitate other legal and asset protection protocols? Well, obviously, when your recoupment comes through, you can use it for whatever you want at the end of the day. Buy a house with it, get yourself a new car, go on a holiday, whatever you want to do. It's your recoupment. If you want to use that to start facilitating other protocols that we have here, then absolutely you can do that. What we can't do is offer those protocols before recoupment comes through and then take the donations from the recoupments when they come through. I know we often get those kind of questions where people will say, can I start the process? Can I go into the recoupment side of things and get the asset fortress, and then when my recoupment comes through, I'll pay for the donation fee out of that. Unfortunately, we can't do that. As you guys are very well aware, we need to keep the lights on. We've got 50 plus contractors here that we need to make sure are receiving their monthly wages to continue to work, because they too have bills and families and expenses to pay too. We can't expect them to work for free, but when recoupment does start coming through, then that will change the game in terms of the people that work here, plus new people coming through as well. But initially, if you want to use your recoupment funds for additional protocols, you can absolutely do that. If you don't want to use them for additional protocols and you're talking about other legal or other asset protections outside, then I'm not sure what the situation is there. Let me just see if I can let Ian back in, because I know we're on a live stream, and it might not, with it being a live stream, it might not let him in while we're running live. Let me just see if I can create him another link here. If it's not going to let Ian in, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to stop this recording, guys, and we're going to have to do a part 2, and then we'll have to stitch the videos together with a bit of jiggery pokery and some magic editing. That's what we'll end up having to do, I think. Let's see if Ian can get back in. Right, we're not having much fun today by the looks of things. Some of the other topics, while we're waiting for Ian to try and get back into the room as well, some of the other topics that we've had some really good questions this week, I have to say. So we've had questions to do with the OID calculations, questions to do with evidence that this works, which we can certainly go into. Where can we see the verified proof of the 600 million in transcripts? Well, you can see that if you go to the ROS Media platform. Go to ROS Media platform. You'll be able to see that there. There's an interview that I did with Anne, where we talk about that. Got you back in. Fantastic.
Yeah, it didn't like me for a while. It wouldn't let me in, so I'm back
Not
now.
to worry. All right, let's crack on. Let's crack on to the next question. So next question, Ian, is do the funds inside the trust account, and I kind of answered this while you were gone because I knew I could. Do the funds inside the trust account need to be transferred to an alternate retail account before being spent, or can they be deployed directly?
Well, the purpose of the a bank account that's connected to the Asset Fortress protocol is that you use it just like you use the bank account for the birth certificate construct. It's a separation. You've separated the activities of the birth certificate construct from the trust, and you can operate the trust bank account in the world of commerce, in this great big worldwide trust monopoly board separately, which is what you want to be doing, because if you want to avoid the digital track and trace of the citizen, it's, the bank account belongs to the trust, not the citizen. So that's the separation that you're looking for. And that should enable you to operate without being constrained, which is quite obviously their ultimate goal by 2030. Most people will have realized that the world is under the jackboot of banking control, the digital concentration camp that Catherine Austin Fitts talks about from the Solari report, and it will be so obvious by then, and there won't be a lot of ways around it. So the Asset Fortress Protocol bank account is part of the strategy for privacy, and you can you spend and recoup from within that account.
Okay. So next question, Ian, is if you have already sold your houses but currently have a foreign grantor trust established, how does one go about claiming reimbursement for those past properties?
Well, I think there's a misunderstanding here. The mortgages, presumably that's the properties were acquired using mortgages at some point, they've been paid off. Those mortgages are signature credit events. So you go back to when the mortgages were first set up, you identify the bank names, the value of the mortgages, and you add that to your signature credit that you're looking to redirect the taxes on. So that's up to, within that $2 million budget, if you like, or $2 million threshold that you've got, add them into that. Make sure that you are you're including them in your signature credit total, and then join the program or add them to the existing filings if you haven't already added them in.
Okay. So last question in this section, Ian, is can I use my infinite money recoupments to set up or facilitate other legal and asset protection protocols?
Well, the ultimate control or the ultimate shelter is the Asset Fortress Protocol. It's it's purpose built for being a separate entity with its own bank account that can hold assets. You can use it. It's private. I don't think you're going to find anything better than that, quite frankly. So I would be using that if I were. You can have more than one if you are concerned about, maybe you want to separate things in different trusts. You can have more than one Asset Fortress Protocol if that's a concern that you want to diversify. You can have as many of them as you want. But it's a very robust structure, internationally recognized as a foreign grantor's trust with a bank account with the ability to privately hold assets. It's better than any trust I've ever seen.
Yeah. So yes, you can use it for more Asset Fortress protocols if you want to have that separation between different assets. But like Ian said, you're probably going to be hard pushed to find anything outside of that that's going to be any better. One thing, just to be clear, just in case this particular person is asking the question in this context as well, if you are considering or asking, can I use my infinite money recoupments to set up, other protocols? We often get the question, can I start with the protocols? Can I start with the recoupment process? And then when recoupment comes through, I'll pay for it from my recoupments. Well, just to be clear, we don't do that. You have to make your donation up front. And there are many, many ways where you can reduce that barrier to entry right down to even zero if you are struggling. So we talk about the webinar referral program, the avatar referral program. There's lots of things that you can do to reduce the upfront donation, but we don't do it in retrospect of that. Okay, category 3 then, Ian. Let's move on here. So ex nihilo mechanics, OID calculations, and evidence as well. I can certainly speak to evidence because we've done a video with Ange on that one. So let's talk about this particular subsection here. The first question, Ian, is can we use the 28-digit reference string document locator number to trace the history of these financial ledger events?
I don't know why you'd want to. That's what we're doing to link everything up. You don't need to find it unless you are looking at voiding a mortgage. It's the only time you might want to reference the IRFM system, the digits, the 26 digits, not 28, which is going to identify the actual signature that created the mortgage. But unless you know exactly what you're doing with the voiding a mortgage at the top of the ledger, and you've got all the infrastructure in place to do it, then the number it's on its own, the 26-digit IRFM 26-digit number is not going to help you on its own. You need to know what to do with it, which is something that I have talked about in the past. I've published a few papers on it. But it's quite an involved process if you're going to try and use that number, because you've got to create a trust that becomes the holder in due course. That's then referencing the tax filing of the 1099 OID by the trust. That's the number that you really want. Any other number is just really the origination of the signature credit. That on its own isn't going to help you to do very much.
No. Okay. Next question then, Ian, is it necessary to supply the exact dates of the original loan signings when completing the documentation?
No, it's to do with the year, really. I mean, it's you could even argue it's an approximation, because sometimes you can't remember exactly what year if you haven't got the original documents to hand. The name of the bank is very important. The amount, roughly, and be conservative, is very important. But the actual year it happened, or the month or the day, it doesn't matter too much, because typically what the banks are doing is they're putting all the signature credit securities into bundles and then trading them up to the investment banks. And it's the linkage between the clearing bank, that's the bank that you got your mortgage with, loan or credit card, or making bank payments from within that banking infrastructure. It's the link between that bank and the investment bank, which is what our system is finding. We're not putting on a 1099 OID exactly when the signature credit was created. The IRS system, they know that, but what they're looking at is whether there's a link between the creation of the signature credit and the investment bank, and the investment bank's EIN number and the investment bank's CUSIP for the security bundle that the signature sits in. So it doesn't really matter too much how precise the actual year was, or it's more about the bank and the amount, which is more important.
Okay. Next question is, where can we see the verified proof of the 600 million in transcripts issued in 2025, and how do we apply that proof to our files?
Well, you can't see the whole 600 million because they're private trusts, and the grantors of each trust, which there were hundreds of them, I'm sure wouldn't want their personal details floating all around the internet. So it's highly unlikely that you're going to see the whole 600 million. You can see mine, which I've published, and I think, Andy, you've held yours up, and Ange Andy and Ange did a video a few weeks ago where there's redacted tax transcripts being shown up on the screen, but you're not going to see all 600 million. That's not going to happen. You can get my word for it, Andy's word for it, Ange's word for it, and you can see some of the tax transcripts, but you're not going to see them all because there's hundreds of them, and I wouldn't even want to ask the grantors for their permission to show them because they're private trust. The references are all locked into the private trust indentures.
Okay. Next question. Can a mentally incapacitated or weak person's account be recouped by a recognized supervisor to benefit their health and wealth?
Yeah, you can do power of attorney. So as long as the party that has generated the signature credit deposits, those transfers of energy originally is of sound mind and can appoint a power of attorney for them, then yeah, they can do all the paperwork. The power of attorney can. That's what powers of attorney generally do.
Yeah.
It's to take over. Yeah. Remember, the power of attorney is against the decedent estate. It's against the citizen estate. So that's what you're doing. You're appointing a power of attorney over that decedent estate to have a right to file documents on behalf of the decedent estate.
Okay. So next question, how does a potential decline in the value of the US dollar affect the purchasing power of the recoupments?
Sure, I understand the question. A decline? No. What do you think a decline refers to?
Well, it just says, how does a potential decline in the value of the US dollar affect the purchasing power of the recoupments? Well, purchasing power would be affected with fluctuations of currencies across the world at any point in time, wouldn't it? I could go and, cash in some pounds for dollars right now and get X amount, which gives me X amount of purchasing power. I could go and do the same in a week's time, and the currency exchange rate shift dramatically, and all of a sudden my purchasing power could be very different.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking about the dollar, the exchange rate of the dollar, it is the world reserve currency. If you want to hedge against the devaluation of all fiat currencies, then that's what gold is being used for. Yeah. The smartest people on the planet are putting substantial amounts into gold and silver because they tend to hold their value. It's all the currencies that are going down. Gold and silver tend to hold their value. So that's what I'd be doing, is getting dollars into the Asset Fortress protocol and converting those into gold. And if you're really smart, you can then leverage against the gold. You can take a loan out against the gold. You can use that as a signature credit event. You can then recoup the signature credit that created the loan, can buy more gold, and you can leverage your gold holdings up. That's what I'd be doing rather than holding the fiat currency itself.
Okay. All right. We've had a question come in on the live stream as well, Ian, which I do want to address, which says, can I do a consultation with you guys? I'm willing to make a donation. Yes, you can absolutely do that. So what I'll do is, I've got your name that I can see in the comments on Facebook. So thank you for that. We'll make a note of that. I'll reach out to the consultant team, and we'll get somebody to reach out to you. I'm assuming that you have a members account here. Hopefully you do. If you don't, then you can actually log in to our members area, or you can go and you can open an account. If you go to rosplatform.is, so rosplatform.is, you'll be able to create yourself an account there. And if you already have one, then we can certainly get the consultant team to reach out to you, because they'll find you in the platform from your name. So leave that with me. I'll get that underway after the session today. And yeah, looking forward to having you on board with us here at ROS. So the next heading, Ian, is to do with caps, limits, and obviously this historical look back to the age of 18. And the questions here are, if the safe harbour limit from age 18 is capped at 2 million per annum, but an individual spent or generated significantly more, is it possible to recoup the remaining excess in subsequent tax years?
Yeah, the threshold for avoiding a manual review of the signature credit tax redirection is $2 million. It's $2 million per annum per foreign grantor trust, or I should probably say per grantor. So if you and your partner, if you've got one, want to do 4 million, that's okay. 2 million, 2 million, and it's every year going forward. So depending on how many more years you're going to be playing Monopoly, it could be over 100 million that you'll be able to recoup. So anything from age 18, if your age 18 to now exceeds 2 million, you can absorb it going forward by that 2 million a year limitation going forward. So most people will be able to recoup everything that they've generated from age 18 just by allocating 2 million in each of the subsequent years going forward. And as we've said, it's difficult to spend $2 million. So you can recoup 2 million. Are you going to spend 2 million every year? Probably not. Well, in the years that you're not spending 2 million, then you can go back to age 18 and mop up anything that you haven't already added in, so that you get the maximum amount of signature credit recoupment that way. Because I very much doubt that our members are all going to be spending 2 million a year and recouping it the following year. You might, the first couple of years, pay off some debts, buy some stuff, but then, and I've been there, you tend to accumulate. You don't tend to spend it all, even if you have pretty lavish lifestyle. 2 million a year per grantor is quite a lot to spend.
It is, yeah. Okay, next question, Ian. And these are all kind of very similar in structure. If you have an annual bank statement or a single mortgage that exceeds the 2 million threshold, such as a $3 million mortgage, how do you structure the claim to handle the excess?
Well, you can do it in stages. So you can put the bank name and the amount. If it's up to 2 million, put 2 million. And if it's more, if it's more than 2 million, you can stagger it across, 1 year you claim the majority, and then the next year you claim the remainder. So again, you just stagger it out over the years. Same bank, same, the same, it's the same wiring in the background that's going on, but we're just splitting it up over tax years going forward.
Okay. Next question is, does the 2 million annual cap apply to standard, well, it says bill payment recoupment here, BPR, but I would imagine that's bank payment recoupment. So does the 2 million annual cap apply to standard bank payment recoupment files as well?
Yeah, it's everything all lumped together. It's, our original, I think the term that a lot of people started using was bank payment recoupments, which I never really liked because we weren't actually recouping the bank payments. It was the signature credit energy that created the bank payments. It's the taxes that are associated with that. So the limit is the limit. It doesn't matter whether it's a mortgage, a credit card, a loan, or all of the above bank payments, all of them lumped into a $2 million a year threshold. It doesn't matter what they are. They're all signature credit events.
Okay. So next question is, and this is one we cannot give you an answer on, guys, based on the narrative of your question. What is the exact processing time once the calculations for signature credit recoupment are submitted?
Well, we've done a whole interview on timeline, and it's somewhere between 6 and 9 months, depending on a lot of factors. The time of year that you start. Now is a good time because the IRS is fully operational until mid-November, and then they shut down some of their functions between November and January. So now's a good time. If everything works the way it's expected to, and all of the timelines that Andy and I have covered on the timeline interview, it's between 6 and 9 months from when you start. So, but there are factors. You have to provide us with the right information. We have to be able to get the trust set up. That's the Foreign Grantors Trust. To be able to file the 1099 OID, we need to be able to make sure that the once that wages and tax transcripts come in for your trust, that the cross-modular transfer happens in a timely fashion, and everything runs smoothly. But quite often things don't happen exactly when you want them to, which is where I say it's between 6 and 9 months from when you start.
Yeah, lovely. Okay. Next question is, will restarting the signature credit lookup all the way back to age 18 cause a delay compared to just processing my current standard annual recoupments?
No, because it's the name of the banks, it's the amounts, and the year that the signature was used to create the credit in the first place doesn't really matter, because it's all being lumped into one tax year, like 2025, for example. So it doesn't matter when the signature was used to create the credit. It matters the year it's being, the tax return, that's the 1041, is being applied in which tax year, matching all of those things: the bank name, the amount, the securities, CUSIP number, the payer's EIN number. All of those things are going to be applied in one tax year, which is at the moment the 2025 tax year.
Okay. Let's move on to the final category then, Ian. And the final category today is mortgages, discharge, foreclosure. Okay, so first question, how can this protocol be used to step out from under a traditional 30-year mortgage while safely keeping your house mortgage free?
Well, it's a great question, and the answer is that the banks are using the signature to create the mortgage. We've established that. They take a deposit in, which is the signature deposit. They create a matching liability, which is the debt. The mortgage debt is a note. It's a securities note. They sell that note to the investment banks. And here's what the banks don't want you to know. The investment banks hold all of those securities in under a street name. So they use the Depository Trust Company and a subsidiary of the Depository Trust Company called Seed & Company. And they hold these mortgage securities under different names. And then what happens is instead of the investment bank filing 1099 OID, which is what they should be doing, because they're holding a security as a nominee on behalf of the true creditor, they don't bother filing the 1099 OID. Yeah. Therefore, they use the signature credit energy. It's hypothecated, and I've just published a paper on it on our Telegram channel, Winning at Monopoly. It explains all of this. And until a foreign grantors trust is created in the right way, and the foreign grantors trust files 1099 OID, putting the investment bank down as the payer, the taxpayer, and the investment banks, the securities bundle, the CUSIP number. Now that 1099 OID filing has completely changed the game. The grantor trust is now the holder in due course of the credit that originated the mortgage. The investment bank can no longer claim that they are the true creditor. They're not. They were always a nominee. They never were the creditor. They presumed to be a creditor, but they never were. Now the grantor trust holds the what's called the holder in due course, which is the creditor status, and the ledger at the very, very top has been discharged. The debt has been discharged by the 1099 OID. And if you mix that together with an adverse claim, where the trust, the foreign grantor's trust, files an adverse claim against the investment bank so that they can't wriggle out of it and claim that they don't know anything about the mortgage being on their books, then basically that you've discharged the mortgage at the very top of the ledger. If you do that at the very top of the ledger, then any charge against the property in the local area has to be released, because ultimately the mortgage has been discharged at the very top of the ledger. I have written papers on this. I will be probably doing another webinar on it going forward. We may, depending on demand, we may launch an avatar and an AI system that can help people to do their own, do their own process, or navigate and administer their own process. It depends on demand, and it also depends on whether we can get the technology to do what we want it to do in terms of drafting all the various documents that you're going to need. But whatever happens, there will be some option available for our members that want to do it. We will make an option available going forward somehow. But that's how you do it. And we may well have the first one that we've actually structured. We may well have a decision on that in the next couple of weeks, which, if we do, will be some big news for the membership.
Yeah, huge. Okay, on that same theme, is it possible to deploy the automated AI system to stop an active mortgage foreclosure?
Well, the best way to stop a mortgage foreclosure is to find the Achilles heel in the mortgage company's presentment. So they normally, because they generally win every one, they're a bit sloppy on their paperwork. They don't follow procedures. So the best way to slow down a mortgage foreclosure is to identify what has the mortgage provider not done correctly in their presentment with the court. I've yet to see one that's perfect. They always make mistakes. They generally make a lot of mistakes because they get a bit arrogant. They expect to win everyone with hands down without too much of pushback. So they get a bit sloppy, and they make a whole range of errors in how they structure their procedure to push it into the foreclosure court. There's generally lots of errors. At the moment, we don't have the AI system available to identify what those errors are, but we will do. I'm confident we will find a way of doing that, because a lot of members, I'm sure, will want to exploit the bank's weakness, which is the fact that they're paying taxes on the 945 ledgers for the use of the signature credit, and that's the smoking gun. Once you prove that, and once the grantor trust has got the holder in due course status, the banks are, they've got nothing left. They've got nothing else to argue.
No. Okay. Next question. Can we claim recoupments for older historical mortgages that are no longer active or current?
Yeah, as long as we can find the CUSIP number for the mortgage, you could go all the way back, probably going back to the mid-80s. As long as we can find the CUSIP number for the mortgage company, and as long as they securitized it, which nearly all mortgages from the mid-80s were securitized, yeah, there's no reason why not.
Okay. And final question, Ian. We've got through this session pretty quick, haven't we, today? The final question is, can a commercial business account bought by a new owner be recouped under this framework?
Yeah, it sounds like the new owner wants to recoup the bank payments from the previous owner's signature.
Yeah.
Sounds like that. If that's the case, it's not possible, because it's all to do with who signed. It would be, the only way you could do it is to go back to the people you bought the business from and say, hey, I can give you a bit more on your purchase, on the purchase of the business, if you go down this pathway, you might be able to do a deal on the recoupment of the signature credit from the original owners, and you might be able to do some sort of a deal with them. But I'll leave that one for you to navigate.
Okay. Well, Ian, that ends the questions today. So we've covered all 5 categories. We've covered all the questions. In terms of where to go from here, guys, call to action for the weekend. Ian and I are also going to be running a webinar this coming Saturday. So it's now Wednesday, 3rd of June. So on Saturday, 6th of June, 10 a.m. UK time, we're going to be running another webinar. We do them every week. This weekend, we are diving even deeper into the signature credit side of things and tax redirection. In particular, the very inconvenient truths that banks do not want you to know about that 945 module. So we'd love to see you there. If you're new to us here at the Republic of Old Souls and you would like to register for the webinar on Saturday, you can go here. Actually, not that one, this one. You can go here, roswebinars.is. If you go there, you'll be able to register. I would highly encourage you to do that because you want to get a seat early on the webinar. If you think about the nature of what Ian has put together here, even though we are using systems and processes that are already in place and designed to work that way, the banks don't want you to know that it actually works that way. So, this is sensitive information that Ian is giving to you guys and educating you on. So seats are strictly capped at the weekend webinars to 1,000 attendees. We always get typically between 13 to 1,500 people registering. So if you want to be able to get a hold of one of those 1,000 seats, make sure that you register now. Okay, so go to roswebinars.is, get yourself registered, and spread the word, guys. Spread the word. Bring other like-minded people to the webinars. Don't let your family and your friends stay trapped in this bankrupt system when the exact methods and protocol for you and your family's financial freedom is right in front of you here. This is tried and tested and proven. So bring them with you as well. We would love for you to invite others to the webinar. And you can do that directly. If you're a member here or an advocate here, you can do that with your referral links as well. We've spoken about that on numerous occasions. Sims and I, we also did a Q&A session on how to use your referral links. We've just done that. So there's been 2 very comprehensive videos that you'll also find on the media channel to do with advocacy and how to benefit from that, how to navigate your advocates platform, how to use your referral links. So you've got all the tools in front of you. So they're my final thoughts, guys. Register for the webinar. We'd love to see you there, 10 a.m. sharp Saturday morning. Before we let anybody go, Ian, any final thoughts from yourself?
I'd love people to really get into the full knowledge and comprehension of what this is all about. And, we've got our webinars, we've got these interviews. There's more interviews on the ROS Media channel, the platform, our media platform. And then there's technical papers that I publish on a regular basis at the Ecclesia Law Institute. There's a good section on signature credit. There's a good section on 945 tax ledgers. I've just published a paper on the Bills of Exchange Act. I've just published a paper on hypothecation. These are all papers that the banks really don't want you to know about. They're all on Ecclesia Institute. You can sign up for, it's called the Ghost, because we can't get on Substack because they ban my content, because obviously they don't want you to know about it. But you can sign up for the Telegram channel, Winning at Monopoly. You can sign up for Ghost by going on the Telegram channel. You can also join our webinars where I break it down a bit further. But the really heavyweight technical stuff is in the research papers. We are relaunching the Avatar because we had a soft launch of it, and we've had to pull it off the market for the moment and redo it because there was a few glitches, which that hopefully will be reintroduced very, very soon, then you should be able to ask technical questions to the avatar as well.
Excellent. And just to kind of wrap that up, Ian, there's the website. If you do want to get into Ian's technical papers, and they are incredibly detailed and very interesting to read, you can go to ecclesialaw.is. You'll see them all under the reports tab there. So for now, guys, I hope that's answered all your questions. And if it hasn't, then we apologize, but we've only answered the ones that we got from you guys. And we'll be doing the same next week. But for now, please get yourselves teed up and registered for this coming Saturday's webinar, all about the 945 module and why the banks don't want you to know about it, which I think by now you should know the reasons. And Ian and I will see you there 10 a.m. sharp. For now, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.